games of Anthony Edwards' 3-year career to this point. He was atrocious. And for everything that was said, rightfully so, about Karl-Anthony Towns in last year's play-in game, I mean, D'Lo had to bail out the entire team against the Clippers last year. And for how much people dumped on Karl-Anthony Towns just sort of like losing his mind and getting caught up in the moment, I guess I'm going to stop a little short of that with Ant, because it looked like the guy took a head over, tea kettle fall on the court. Maybe has a concussion.
I was going to say there's a 0% chance that he has a concussion.
But I will say this, and the shoulder was clearly jacked up, and it just looked like a nasty fall. He was terrible before that happened. I think he was like 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 before that fall happened. And so he was well on his way to one of the worst stinkers of his young career to this point. So I don't think it's fair for me. I'm just going to speak for myself. I can't sit here and rip Karl-Anthony Towns for no showing playing games and playoff games. I can't sit here and rip on D'Lo for no showing games and then not call out Anthony Edwards for being 3 for 17 from the field, 0 for 9 from three-point range, when literally all they needed for him was like 2 extra baskets at any point in regulation, and they would have won that game before overtime.
Yeah, no, I mess with that. Like I like the keep your same energy stuff. Listen again. If you want thorough, objective analysis, go listen to Dane for this pod, because that's not what you're going to get from me. I thought Ant played his ass off defensively. He was bad offensively, but defensively he gets that block at the end of the first, and he's thrust into something now where it's like, hey, Karl starts cooking, but you don't really know if Karl's going to cook. So it's like, hey, we need you to be really good offensively, but we don't really have a lot defensively. I mean, he was in LeBron's jersey early in that first half when TP would sit. So, but I'm with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, we would do the same to D'Angelo Russell, to Karl-Anthony Towns, to any of these guys. So, but I really, one of the things about Ant, as we learned through his 3 years, and he's 21 still, so I just have a hard time criticizing him too much, and that makes me soft, but he just doesn't know how to really deal with injuries. Some guys do. Anthony Davis does, because he's injured 394 days a year, but yeah. Ant just doesn't. And I mean, that spill he took was him also just trying to rebound. But I mean, I thought he landed on his head. And then, I mean, his shoulder, he just didn't have it. And he started to do that thing again. And this is probably where the criticism comes in. He's standing in the corner, and they throw Vando on him. Vando, as we know, as Wolves fans, like, Vando's one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. So he gave him fits. I was just scrolling through the timeline, not to pivot, but I thought this is an interesting stat that I also want to throw out. Just an interesting stat. Free throw attempts in the second half and overtime. Lakers 17, Wolves 3. And those three came with 0.1 seconds left.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not really like, there was some tough whistles. Karl's 5th foul. It's, again, I don't know. I played the whole 48. Like, Karl was the only reason they had a lead. Really, I mean, he was cooking. Again, he was the best player on the court for those first half. But yeah, you got to box out. It's always been a bugaboo for them. It's why they gave up extra possessions to the Grizzlies. I mean, this really felt, Phil, like the Grizzlies series, where it's like that the best team tonight, the best team didn't win. Like, just in this version of it. And that's a tough pill to swallow. You can cross it off as some the young guy learning in Ant, but you had a lot of veterans out there. Kyle, TP, Karl. He's not a young guy anymore, so it's a tough one. It's a tough game. You still got one more. I mean, I used the analogy last week that they wrote their book report the night before it's due, but they had a lot of time to get out of having to write this book report. They could have been a 6 seed and had a week off and, let everyone rest. And then you probably don't punch each other and you probably don't break your hand, right? So,
and now who knows what's going to happen on Friday, because now you're adding Rudy Gobert back in the mix. It'll help to have
and let's
a body.
See what happens with Ant. I mean, he's going to be questionable on an injury report come Thursday or Friday, just because that's kind of what the Wolves do. But he just didn't show up. He didn't show up even when he took a couple shots. He just couldn't get to the rim, and part of that too is like it doesn't really matter who else the Lakers throw out there, but when it's Vandal, LeBron, and AD, that's tough. But he just, I think he's averaged like 27 points a game against the Lakers in his career, and for him to score single digits is it's a tough look. What'd you think just 48 minutes maybe peaks and valleys. What do you think of Finch?
So I thought the fourth quarter was brutal. And
Yep.
I think, this is what's tough to weigh is like, on one hand, I was all ready to come on this podcast and just praise a crazy depleted team for bouncing back, from that debacle on Sunday that turned out to be a win, but just like everything, all the drama of the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this team, Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards were on the court for the majority of the fourth quarter, and Mike Conley was on the court. It wasn't like this is the problem I have with the fourth quarter. You scored 12 points, you went like 6 minutes with nothing, and it wasn't like you were running a bunch of backdoor cuts and movement and swinging the ball around. And I know guys were kind of exhausted because you were essentially playing a 6-man rotation in the second half, but like, to answer your question, thoroughly unimpressed with Chris Finch in the fourth quarter. I don't think you can continue running the same stagnant thing. Anthony Edwards, exhausted, is going to dribble the ball for 15, 20 seconds, and they're going to do a half-ass pick and roll with Karl-Anthony Towns. And then how many times did they give the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns one-on-one against Anthony Davis, and he realizes, I can't actually get by Anthony Davis, and so then the offense bogs down again. It's like that. The whole fourth quarter felt like, let's try Karl-Anthony Towns one-on-one and Anthony Davis. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay, let's see if Anthony Edwards has a drop of gas left in the tank. Okay, nope, that's not going to work. Then maybe Taurean Prince, Kyle Anderson, or Mike Conley can bail us out with some sort of miracle shot. And it felt to me like, is there nothing else that can be done here schematically or strategically? Is this it?
And bravo. I think you're right. I would say of all the times that I've defended Finch, and it probably rings hollow, to your question of, is this it? This might be the one time where it's like, that's it. Because when I look at this box score again, you said they basically played 6 guys, right? I know Jalen Noel had 13 minutes. Jordan McLaughlin had 10 minutes. They felt like 100, and they were all bad. I'm a Jordan McLaughlin fan. He was 0 for 5, no rebounds, no assists.
He was brutal, dude.
2 turnovers, a -10. I guess Kyle Anderson was a team worst, -14, but he was everywhere. And Nate Knight gave 2 minutes and was just like, it's not a Nate Knight night. So I don't mean every guy in the Wolves lineup played 41 minutes or more, and the only reason Karl only played 41 is because he had 5 fouls. So I mean, it's not an apology, but if Ant's injured, and we've really figured out after 200 games with Ant that if he's hurt, he's just kind of like not scared but nervous, or just timid. Timid's probably the right word. I don't know what else they had, because Taurean Prince had LeBron on him, and Karl had AD on him, and Kyle's not going to get you a lot of buckets. And it was actually ironic in those final 6 minutes when they're not scoring. That would have actually been a really good time to have Rudy Gobert. Because Mike would have got him in a pick and roll. Kyle would have got him in a pick and roll. They would have just, at a worst case scenario, you get Rudy 4 free throws and he hits 1 of them or 2 of them. Mm-hmm. That was actually probably the spot where you missed him the most. But they just look if you want a gruesome, not safe for work, go look at the 4 guys who came off the Wolves bench. Nikhil, I thought, was great again, gave them a lot of energy.
He was. And actually, Jalen Noel had some classic Jalen Noel moments.
Yep.
Like both good and bad. And he had a couple big shots. I think he was a -6 out there, but I think his presence was sort of break even for me.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me just with the eye test, he's going to play 13 minutes, he's going to make 4 shots, and it's not going to be a total train wreck. Karl-Anthony Towns, what an interesting game for him, because in the first half, he was flawless. In the first half, it was he hasn't played in that many like big time spotlight sort of do or die type games. He's got the 2 playoff series he's played in, and then the play-in game last year, and he's been atrocious in about half of those games.
Yep.
Objectively atrocious. And tonight it was like he came out, he was composed, he was stoic for the most part in the first half. And I don't think he missed a shot in the first half, dude. I think he was like 5 for 5 or 6 for 6 in the first half. And he had 20 points, whatever it was. In the second half, I get that they put a focus on him. They weren't just going to let him, get open for 3 and whatnot. But he acts like every foul is a terrible call. And how could you possibly call that, right? It's at some point, the foul numbers for him over time speak for themselves. Like you're playing basically a 6 or 7 man rotation. You can't get handsy in some of these spots. You can't fight for every single position on the low block. You have to just be smarter. You have to just be more composed as the game goes along. And so, a lot of people are going to chalk it. And by the way, you brought up the officiating discrepancy, and I do agree. The second half officiating in particular was awfully fishy. Fishy.
It's a strike zone changing every time.
Karl-Anthony Towns has a habit of getting up to 5 and oftentimes even 6 personal fouls in big games. And you just can't do that. And in the second half, where was he? Dude, they needed like 2 more buckets in the second half, and it's just Mike Conley raining threes and Taurean Prince and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and they just needed in the second half Anthony Edwards or Karl-Anthony Towns to give you a little something more. I don't think it's too much to ask for your superstar players to be great for the full game when the season's on the line, when playoff seeding and all these things are on the line. That's why you're paying Karl-Anthony Towns, not to play a great first half, but to play a great total game and not get into foul trouble. So I guess that's my man. I'm sorry. I loved his first half. At the end of the day, you're going to look back and say, oh, he went for 24, 11, and 5. He, only missed 4 shots and was a plus 19, but the dude was Houdini in the second half. So I got to rip him a little bit too, unfortunately.
Nope. And I have no problem with that. I just am going to stand. I mean, I don't care who the player is. I'm just going to stand by the fact if you play 41 minutes and it's against Anthony Davis and the Lakers and LeBron James at Staples Center or the Crypt, you're going to get 5 fouls. Because again, they had no one else to do it. I mean, LeBron had 5 fouls and he probably had 13 of them. But yeah, Minnesota moves to 36-19 now, 19 losses when they have double-digit leads. And that's
insane.
So with Portland being eliminated, not playing anymore, they tied the Blazers for the most losses this season after leading by double digits. And that stat's still a little wonky to me because you could be up 12-2, right? And then the game kind of balances out, but that's a trend. And that's, I don't. Finch's offense is, Phil, I think you probably could come up with a football analogy off the top here, but it's really beautiful, right? Those first 3 quarters, and then when it just gets stagnant, it's just 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out. I mean, it's one thing to get good looks and miss them. That's totally cool, but they didn't even get good looks, and it felt like on the call, Reggie Miller a lot of times was like, "There's 5 seconds left on the shot clock. Like, what offense are you running? What are you getting into?" So, but I also again just come to that's not AD really. Like, they don't really just, hey, AD, here's the ball at 30 feet, 5 seconds left, go do your thing. They find them ways to get the ball. That's not really Karl's game either. And it's just like, if Ant's in the corner, another guy they missed too is like, Jaden would have been great defensively, but the Wolves were great defensively. They could have just used Jaden to take someone off the dribble. Because if AD's on Karl, and let's say LeBron is maybe on Ant, or LeBron is, hiding somewhere in the corner, like at least you could get a couple buckets from Jaden or just get the ball moving a little more. So, I don't know if I'm just kind of perusing Twitter because I'm in my feelings. Chris Finch on Karl-Anthony Towns after the game. He was in a heck of a rhythm until they whistled him to the bench. So Finch with another
so he's taking a sideways shot. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think back. I don't think any of Karl's fouls were bad calls.
No. I don't think that either. I just I actually thought for the first half, I had a couple buddies over and we were like, this is a really well officiated game, I thought, because they were letting things go. I know a quick peruse of Twitter, Lakers fans were mad, but it was just like, I thought they just let a lot of things go. That's how you want to see these playoff games. But yeah, 17-3 free throws in the second half and overtime is pretty a blemish. I also just wonder, if I go back and look at the shot chart, how many times the Wolves were in the paint. Do they get in the paint and they see AD and they're just frightened? And he's fantastic. He's a Hall of Fame player on both ends, but
the other thing too is the Lakers need a bucket in the second half. The Lakers need a bucket in the fourth quarter, and it just turns into and the whole game was a mess for both sides. And I get that LeBron is one of the 2 or 3 greatest players of all time, so it's tough to compare like Anthony Edwards to LeBron James. It would be nice at some point if we could make that comparison, but it's not realistic right now. But what the Lakers do is, okay, here's our 2 dudes. Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and they are just going to go impose their will. They're going to force the official to sometimes there's a savviness about getting the foul call, and I don't think Anthony Edwards has learned that as much yet. And sometimes it's because he just blows through contact. He's not great at think about how annoyed you get watching Chris Paul, how annoyed you get watching LeBron James. Like, it's very frustrating as an opposing fan to watch those players, but those guys are brilliant selling to officials when there's contact. When it's kind of a 50-50, they're just like, that's part of the game. And I think Anthony Edwards hasn't learned that part of the game yet. On a night where you can't make a shot, your shoulder is out of whack.
Yeah.
Maybe you're even mildly concussed. You got to shoot more than 4 free throws.
Yep. Yeah.
You have to make, and I don't want to hear like, well, like there was a couple times where he definitely got screwed. I think the last layup he tried, like LeBron James literally hacked his arm, and there's going to be some of that stuff too. But by and large, at some point as he gets older, I think he's going to learn. I'm not even like, I'm kind of criticizing him, but I'm saying like as he gets older, he will hopefully learn how to get to the line 10 times in a game like this instead of 4. On the Cat side, because that's the other guy, right? We need a bucket. It's got to come from Ant. It's got to come from Cat. I think Cat has sort of flailed and complained his way out of the benefit of the doubt of officials. Like officials, he is sort of the NBA basketball player who cried wolf when it comes to foul calls. He flails and he's so animated all the time that he's just not going to like. I think he does a bad job of ingratiating himself with officials, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's too late on the West Coast for us to go at it. Luka Doncic made a money sign to the officials, and it was like 7th in free throw attempts in the league. I'm with you.
But he fits the first category. He's brilliant at selling contact.
Right. Okay. And that's where you're on it. I'll have to watch it again because I kind of just blacked out since 7:30. But I didn't think. The fifth foul is just you just got to box out. You just got to box him out. I mean, AD sells it too, but again, like you said, it's because AD's good at that, and the Wolves just don't have those guys that kind of grift their way and sell contact a lot. I mean, Mike Conley probably does it the best, right? Like he'll flop his way, or TP does it too. But yeah, Karl doesn't. When he flops, he doesn't get the call. So I think you're right on that. I don't know. Mike Conley's got some tough whistles since he got to Minnesota, and everyone told me Mike Conley had the best rapport with the league. Like he ran the officials association, and Mike Conley still gets a tough whistle too. So I'm with you. I mean, again, Alan Horton had this one. Over the last 11 minutes of the fourth quarter overtime, the Wolves missed 14 of 16 shots and had 8 turnovers. That, I don't really know, Phil, how that's just on Finch. I mean, and if Ant can't give you anything, and you don't have Jaden, and you don't have Nas, and Rudy is better offensively than, the 49th minute of Kyle Anderson, you just got to run more stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to run. I mean, the free-flowing offense is beautiful, but you got to have, and I will say, because it's a Jekyll and Hyde, like, Finch, what are you doing? That final play in regulation, it's like, is Karl going to take this 3? Is the 21-year-old All-Star going to take? That play was only designed for Mike Conley. Mm-hmm. Like, that was a hell of a play to get Mike in the corner to get a shot. I don't know how Anthony Davis fouled him, but yeah, it's just
that was an incredibly dumb, dude. If I'm a Lakers fan, oh man,
if you go watch it too, like AD takes the longest step in the world with his foot, and it's like as soon as he does it, like he's gonna foul him. And Mike kind of flops again too, but I mean, I thought 3 quarters, man, 3 quarters. I think they're up 7 at the end of the third, but don't tell your friends, don't tell your grandchildren that they scored 12 in the fourth quarter, because I don't think that's true. They scored 9. They had 9 points through 11 minutes and 59 seconds. And that's just inexcusable. It's just one of those things. It's like we just got to get a couple field goals. We just got to get a couple baskets here and there. And there was just so many times in my memory where they were just 6 seconds, 5 seconds. And Karl is like, I mean, again, in Karl's defense in that point, it's like, dude, Karl's not going to go by Anthony Davis. Torian Prince had a couple times where it's like, dude, TP, there's 4 seconds left, and LeBron's on you. Like, just move it or do something. So,
dude, how many times did J-Mac attempt? I think it was like 3 different times he tried to go to the rack for a layup, and LeBron James just swats the ball out of bounds. Well, how did our guy J-Mac go from being a straw that stirs the drink for the first 2 months? I guess the calf injury maybe derailed him a little bit, but
he might still be coming back from it. But it's just the thing with him is he just can't consistently shoot.
Yeah.
So 0 for 5. There was a play, if I'm remembering right, where he catches the ball second half, but he's in the corner, left corner, has a chance to hit a 3. I think they're up 10. Could have pushed it to 13, misses. They run out in transition, and then Beasley hits a 3. Now it's 7.
Yeah.
And that's just a killer. Like, it's just a killer to not. again, like I'm fairly proud of them, how they performed. Every guy you can look at and say he was good. He was good. Kyle Anderson, 12, 13 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, 4 blocks. Like, what the bleep? But your margin is so small. Your margin is so small when you punch a player or you punch a wall or you break your wrist, right? Like, the Wolves have essentially 4 good hands out of 3 players sitting on the bench. And it's just a tough look. But yeah, the McLaughlin minutes were terrible. They pretty much figured out they couldn't do Knight right away. So it's like,
Gosh,
I don't know.
yeah.
They put Karl in. If I go back and look at the fourth, I thought they put Karl in a little early. I think there was like 8 minutes left, and maybe it was like a 5 or 7 point game. But I also
so
get
tough,
it with
though.
Finch.
It's like if you leave him out, because at the time I think the
Damned
Wolves
if
were
you
like
do,
a
damned if you don't.
plus
Yeah.
25 with him on the court or something, and then a minus 13. But you kind of like, just to go along with your box score, perusing here, I think what's interesting is, and I'll give you, even though I'm definitely nitpicking Karl's second half in this game,
That's fine.
I'll give you the complete, if you would have told me before the game, you don't know how it's going to happen, but he's going to give you 41 minutes. He's going to go 8 for 12 from the floor, 24 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. Take it or leave it, I would say. I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll take that, right? So I'll give you Karl. The only guy, if we're not counting Nate Knight and Jordan McLaughlin, the only guy that didn't meet or wildly exceed box score expectations in this game was Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
And you wound up, you're in overtime. You had a freaking 15-point lead in the third quarter. And it's just going to be and maybe we can preview this for a couple minutes before we say goodbye here, but the Friday night games. But if you don't, if Friday night is just a letdown because guys are banged up and Rudy's back is still bad and the chemistry is weird and you lose a game to Oklahoma City or something, you're going to look back at this and say, man, if Ant would have gone 5 for 17 instead of 3 for 17 in this game, or lo and behold, like if he shows up and goes 11 for 17 and joins Karl-Anthony Towns, do they blow the Lakers out in this game? So I think you just have to hope that it's just one of those sort of light a spark type learning experiences for him. And maybe I think here's another thing too. This is more of an existential Anthony Edwards thought. I think so highly of him, Kyle. And I'm trying not to set his bar at like LeBron and some of the best players in the NBA, because that's not fair. The likely scenario for him is that he comes in lower than that, like that his peak in 3 or 4 years is all NBA, but he's not like carry your franchise to 5 championships level good. And I'm trying to figure out how to judge him. Like, he's 21 now. I wanted more out of him tonight. He's also banged up. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the expectation bar for him this year, this week, next year, going forward, You
know what's funny is that he should be ridiculed tomorrow. I mean, unless we find out he like dislocated his shoulder or had a concussion, he should be cooked. Like nationally, like he should be on all the first take stuff, and he should be like, the kid went 0 for 9 from 3, and that will tell me that he's made it. Right? You know what I mean? Like the best guys in the league, like when Paul George gives you 3 for 20, he gets cooked, and Paul George is referred to around the league as a superstar. So if the heat comes at Ant tomorrow for not showing up when the lights were bright, despite whatever injury he might have sustained, in a weird, messed up way, to me, that's almost like a sign that the kid is elevated, because in other situations, if it was just a talented 21-year-old, you'd be like, oh, he's got some talent, he's got some upside. But like, this kid just made an all-star team 2 months ago. So he deserves the ridicule, because if you're on, my thing has always been, and I think this is how Finch coaches, if you can check in, then you got to play how you play. Like, you can't be just a decoy. I don't think Finch believes in that. Like, if Ant can play 41 minutes, then you have to do something. You have to be aggressive. And the thing that killed him is that he was 0 for 9 from 3. Obviously, some of those came in overtime and stuff. But if his jumper's not there, and he's clearly showed that he can shoot, but if his jumper's not there, it just allows that defender to just have a half step more. Just to, Vando can take a half step back. LeBron can take a half step back. Reeves or whoever's on him. But yeah, it's tough, though. I was just looking at the play-by-play with 6:01 left in the fourth. Kyle Anderson kicks it to Mike Conley for a 24 foot three to make it 95-88 with 6:01 left.
Mm-hmm.
The Wolves had 95 points all the way until point one.
Yeah.
And again, so 90. What did I say? 95-88. In that next 6 minutes, the Lakers, led by LeBron James, led by Anthony Davis, only scored 10 points. This loss will sting and hurt, and well, God forbid, we'll see how they recover on Friday. But I also would say too, just all other stuff aside, Karl's included in this, and one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen. I mean, that team was on a string defensively, but you just got to find ways to get points, and they just completely ignored the paint. But I mean, just when you thought it was over too, like that Taurean Prince steal, I've never seen someone steal the ball from LeBron.
Dude, the fact that Taurean Prince and Mike Conley had like the types of steals that you never see in those situations when you're like playing the foul game, it's incredible, dude. How many things actually went right for the Timberwolves in this game? You know, I think if the officiating kind of went against them in the second half, but so many things that you don't usually see happen. You know, going into the game, most people correctly said Lakers are probably going to have their way in the paint and rebounding and all those things. The Wolves have to shoot lights out from three if they want to stay in this game and win it, and they start hot from three. All these things, all these things went their way, and I don't. I'm not even thinking about Rudy, but it's just like points in the paint. Phil points it out.
54-36 Lakers. I mean, that's what they do. That's how they're going to get into when they play the Grizzlies now in a series, which is, by the way, I think we should quickly talk about Friday, but then just talk about kind of how this all sets up. Grizzlies-Lakers are going to be fantastic. I don't really have a lot of optimism to give you. I mean, I still think, it's 44 minutes a piece for these guys. They're going to be exhausted. They get on a plane tonight to go to Minnesota. They do have the rest advantage. That's part of the bonus of being a 7 or 8 seed. Thunder and Pelicans obviously play on Wednesday night. But you just got to figure out a way to, I guess, recover. I don't think Finch is going to extend his rotation much. But if there's one thing I can say that'll be positive is that I just think without Jaden, and he's done, obviously he's not going to come back this postseason. Take all the emotion aside of tonight, I much rather would play the Nuggets. You and I have been on the record about, I think I called them Purdue. I called them a
fake 1 seed, and that got some traction.
I got some traction on the national side of things. I mean, again, you would have loved to win tonight and have 5 days to rest and go to couples therapy for Kyle and Rudy. But I still think that if you just make the playoffs and now you get a game at home that's kind of win or go home or win or stay home, I guess. They match up better with the Nuggets just because I don't know how they would have stopped Ja. So I mean, the Grizzlies have some injuries too, but. Yeah, Phil, we pivot. We pivot to Friday. I mean, I don't know what your initial thoughts are. I mean, we don't know the opponent, but
I have I'll just give you like a 30-second take on that, and then we can wrap this too. By the way, thank you to everyone who's hanging out with us here.
Dude, thanks. I don't
almost 1:00 in the morning Central Time, and if you're hanging out with us here on the Score North YouTube channel, please click subscribe and the like button, and we'll keep feeding you not only Timberwolves related discussions and takes and content here on Flagrant Howls, but also Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd's hockey show. They were live after the Wild game tonight. So I think it's a benefit that they do have the extra day. Like, you get the rest of the week until Friday now to sort of sit in your feelings, to practice, for Anthony Edwards to get healthier. I have no idea what's going to happen on Friday. I have no idea how they're going to respond to this. I have no idea how Rudy Gobert is going to fit back into this thing. I'm very curious, and we could do this episode, if it happens. But if they lose on Friday and they come up short of the playoff bracket, really curious to see what the fallout is.
Oh,
I think there's a chance you could justify if you get in, and like you said, if you take the Nuggets deep or something, 6 or 7 games, you could talk yourself into, as a franchise, all right, well, man, Karl was out, and the Gobert edition, we just never things got really weird, and we just never had a chance. But look, when it all finally came together, we almost took the 1 seed. And eliminated them. I'm saying you could talk yourself into, as a franchise, running it back again for the most part.
Yeah.
If they lose on Friday, I wouldn't be shocked if Chris Finch goes. I wouldn't be shocked if it leads to some sort of bigger trade involving Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm just like, that would be a pretty huge franchise disaster considering what the expectations were before the season. So a lot to be determined on Friday night, I guess.
I think that's what kind of makes the NBA sweet in a sense, is that I don't know, maybe in football, maybe not, maybe in baseball, but like we can kind of hypothesize all these different things that happen, but it'll literally depend on what happens 48 minutes on Friday. If the Wolves beat the Lakers tonight and the Lakers now have to play in the next playing game, like it just happened, the Heat lost at home to the Hawks. Like if the Wolves do pull this out and then the Lakers somehow lose on Friday, they probably trade Anthony Davis. Like, I mean, they have the same reactionary, like, wait, you blew the play-in games and all this stuff. So, I mean, that's the razor's edge of, it's not just Wolves stuff. I mean, that's the razor's edge of the league. This morning, there was rumors that Trae Young was going to get traded, and then he was the best player on the court. It's just that's how small the margin is in the NBA in 2023. So, yeah, you get a home game. You'll have the rest advantage. It's weird because it's like if you were just sending this Wolves team back, you'd be like, all right, that's cool. You have no idea. I mean, I think net positive, we would both say that Karl had at least one more plus than he had a minus tonight, but he doesn't look good next to Rudy. So it's like we got a great Karl game for the most part, but now, I mean, do you expect a good Karl game on Friday?
But that I will say this about the Karl game tonight. You know, again, if you aspire to go deep in the Western Conference playoffs, right? Like that's the whole goal here at some point in the next few years is to go deep in the playoffs. Karl, who's a Supermax player, was very clearly not one of the two best players tonight. Like first half, he was excellent. I'm saying over the course of like the next month, are you going to take Karl over Anthony Davis? Are you going to take Karl over LeBron? You know, are you going to take Karl over Kevin Durant? Karl over Devin Booker? Karl over, name your, Steph Curry? Like, when you start to stack Karl up in these playoff games against some of the other players that are also super max players, it's obvious to me that he needs to be secondary to hopefully Ant or tertiary, like a Kevin Love. If you want to really make noise in the playoffs, you can't just be putting it all on Karl, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should boot him. I'm not saying you should kick him off the island for nothing. I'm saying if your franchise aspires to go deep in the Western Conference playoffs, it can't run through Karl. He needs to be a piece of it, potentially. It can't run through Karl. He's not capable. He's just otherwise it would have happened by now in 7 or 8 years. So I thought that was pretty evident in the second half tonight, especially.
I think you're one of my best friends, so I don't think we'll ever really fight. I just think that if Ant has 13 points and not 9, we come on this and we're like, holy shit, Karl-Anthony Towns was awesome again tonight. So, I mean, I know the foul trouble is a thing, but I just, I don't know. I mean, I thought the only people should listen to this is the first 3 minutes because Phil killed it at the beginning. Like, if you're going to criticize Karl against the Clippers and you're going to criticize D'Lo against the Grizzlies, you got to criticize Ant against the Lakers because I thought, again, Karl, everything you said, you're never going to take him over KD or Booker or any of those guys, but he gave you about as much as he could. And he gave you, in my opinion, a max performance tonight, but he had no one really alongside him. So, and then again, it's just the fouling. It's Phil, we're 7 years or something into this, and it's just like, I don't, you play a lot of minutes, you're going to get a couple fouls, but I'd have to rewatch the game. But that moment where you just don't box out AD, I mean, you watch how Kyle Anderson boxes out guys, and he holds that pose for an extra second. It's a tough one. It's tough, and it sucks because, like I said, I would have come on here and been happy if they lost by 30 and everyone sat out in the fourth quarter because it's like, all right, whatever, we'll run it back on Friday. But it's that Grizzlies feeling again. It's like you can't keep, winning games for 38 minutes, 42 minutes, and then losing them. Yeah. So, and that's why I don't think it's really a hot take for you to say, like, at some point, if you're tied for the league lead and losing double-digit games or leads, someone's going to probably have to take the fall. I don't know how you run it back from that unless you just try to sell the Kool-Aid of, well, we had 36 or we had 54 double-digit leads on the season. So I don't know, man. I need a hug.
We'll see. We'll see what happens on Friday. I think that's probably a wrap for us here, so we can get some sleep and I don't know. See
Jared
if the sun
Vanderbilt
comes up in Wolvesville tomorrow, I guess.
Jared Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell, and Malik Beasley, the 3 former Wolves that were traded, combined for 7 points tonight. This would have
D'Lo
been
was a ghost, man. That
This
was
would-
a
this would have
bad
been-
performance.
such a fun pod had they have won.
I know.
This is two sides of it. Two sides of
God,
it.
I'm still, even though the Lakers won, I am begging the D'Lo defenders. Where are you tonight? Enter my timeline. Come on in. Would love to hear from you tonight. Mike Conley's washed. You guys are idiots. Dude, tonight, Mike Conley was the adult in the room that we talked about a month and a half ago. D'Lo was on the bench watching Dennis Schroeder bring the Lakers back in the second half.
Probably needed to at least mention that guy's name because he was also phenomenal. I mean, he really is an awesome, like Jaden-like defender as a guard, and he like weirdly twisted his ankle on D'Lo, and I thought he was cooked for the rest of the game, but he came back and hit a couple of shots. I don't know. The Wolves needed Rudy for no other reason tonight than when Schroeder hit that 3 in the corner and had a full celebration in front of the Wolves bench. Rudy should have punched him. That's who you punch, because that was just about the most egregious. I mean, I don't think they call taunting in the NBA, which is totally fine, but he was standing there doing the ice in his veins. It was a tough one to watch. But what a game. What a game. Yeah. Mike Conley, shout out to you. Shout out to Austin Reeves, who gets a really good whistle.
Yeah, well, that's a wrap here on Flagrant Howls. Yeah, could have been something special tonight, but alas, it is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we appreciate you guys hanging out with us late here. We'll see what happens on Friday night. He's Kyle. I'm Phil. Thanks for supporting your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.